Alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today, and I found something interesting that both Josh from Dragon Ball Nation and Blackenfist have actually found on Tumblr, which is this Dragon Ball Z battle sorter. And what it basically does is you basically pick which character you like more, and it basically allows you to pick your favorite characters, and there's actually 47 of them. But I actually realized that although this was intended to be for choosing your favorite characters, you can actually use this in the exact same way into determining how strong you think the characters are in comparison to each other. And I thought it was a really fun idea for a topic. I'm going to go through all these characters. It's going to be a relatively longer video, but I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm going to basically explain, you know, for at least the more controversial ones, why I think certain characters are stronger than others. And obviously, if I think it's an obvious answer, like, you know, Goku versus, you know, I don't know, the Tenkaichi Budokai announcer, then I will obviously put Goku overhead him and not really say anything. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. So, oh, and by the way, guys, I forgot to mention, this is based off of Battle of Gods, not Fukkatsu no F, because that can change a lot of things, especially because of Frieza. So, this is based off of how strong I think the characters compare to each other as of Battle of Gods, alright? So that would include Super Saiyan God Goku. So, Goku versus Vegeta. Well, obviously, because of Super Saiyan God, I'm going to have to give Goku the edge here. This is not taking into account Fukkatsu no F and Vegeta's potential transformation. So, I go with Goku. Now, Taiyo Pai Pai, I should also refer to him as Mercenary Tao, is actually this Taiyo Pai Pai. That's what they really refer to him more in the Japanese version. Or Beerus. This isn't even a question. Beerus is way stronger than him. Now, when we compare Pilaf and Dabura, that's obvious. Dabura is much stronger. Korin and Mr. Popo was one that Blackenfist, I, and Josh were all debating, because it's kind of unclear, but there is one little piece of evidence. The Daishenzu had a power level guide, and in that guide, they said that Mr. Popo was 1030, which would put him close to the strength of Raditz. And I think that because of this, I'm going to have to give Mr. Popo the edge, because although it's unofficial, that's the only real evidence that we have. Now, there are going to be some people who are going to say, well, he stopped a Super Saiyan Goten and Trunks, but that was basically done for comic effect, and that really had not much to do with it. So I'm going to go with hands down Mr. Popo. I don't think it's clear, but I would go with Mr. Popo on this one. Supreme Kai versus Kibito Kai. Now, from what Josh was telling me, they're not referring to Kibito Kai as Kibito. They're referring to him as Kibito Kai once he had actually fused with Kibito himself. I wish they had just put Kibito, but if they're talking about Kibito Kai, that's how it would be. So you know what, guys? I'm going to kind of do this a little bit more unique. I'm going to consider Kibito Kai Kibito, even though obviously Kibito Kai would be stronger than Supreme Kai because he's obviously fused. Let's just do it as if we were comparing them separately, okay? Just to make this a little bit more unique. So I'm going to go with Supreme Kai on this, obviously, because he's actually a Supreme Kai, and Kibito would obviously be a servant. But you understand the purpose, though, guys. So I'm going with Supreme Kai here. Babidi versus Captain Ginyu. Captain Ginyu, hands down. Videl versus Yajirobe. This is a very interesting one. It seems like Videl has a greater understanding of Kai manipulation. She can fly, which does give her somewhat of an advantage in a fight. Yajirobe does have a sword. But the reason I would give Videl a slight edge is because even though she was losing and Spopovich was tying with her, she was fighting against an abnormally strong human in Spopovich. Now, how strong is Spopovich is a different question, and obviously only him and Yamu were able to hurt Gohan because Supreme Kai basically stunned Gohan so he couldn't move. But because of that, I mean, she was taking in some serious blows from an abnormally powerful human, and she even took an energy blast from him. So I'm going to have to give the edge to Videl here. I know some of you will disagree, but I'd love to hear your understanding in the comment section. That's what makes this so fun. Alright, now Oolong versus Piccolo Daimao. For those of you who don't know, Piccolo Daimao is King Piccolo. This isn't even close, King Piccolo. Dende versus Launch. I find Dende the most complicated character on this list because he's not a fighter, but he does know how to fly, and if you count GT, he does know how to shoot basic energy blasts. Now, you would think that Dende at least has would be a little bit stronger than the average human. And when you're talking about launch, are you talking about her nice form or her bad form? Because that makes a difference too. I think that I'm gonna have to go with Dende because I can't see Launch beating him in a fight. But I mean, this is so complicated. And Launch was never really, I guess you can say, as formally trained as the others. So, but she used the gun and she seemed tough, but I mean, is she really a fighter? Well, you know what? I'm gonna base this on fighting skills purely. Just purely on fighting skills. Man, I mean, we've never seen anything from Dende, and we've seen... So, I mean, Launch was able to rob banks, even though with the hand of guns. If you count weapons, which I do take into account weapons, because the key is technically a weapon. I'm gonna give the edge to Launch, guys, but I'm not considering this in terms of Dende being able to fly and shoot Energy Blast in GT. I'm basing this off of what I would think would win in a physical hand-to-hand fight. And Goku himself said that he would have fused with Hercule over Dende. Now, obviously, Hercule would be stronger than Launch, but, I mean, how much stronger than Launch would Hercule be? I don't know. I think Hercule would be considerably stronger, but Launch... I don't know. I would think that Launch would be stronger than the average human. So, you know what, guys? I know this might make you guys question my knowledge of Dragon Ball Z, but I'm going to have to go with Launch. I know it's weird, but I just can't see Dende fighting. But, and I know that GT, man, those energy blasts, who knows how strong they were. But you know what, guys? And by the way, this is as of Battle of Gods anyway, so I don't know. Oh, man, I know I've spent too long talking about this. Because of flight, guys, I'm going with Dende. Yes, I spent all that time talking about the question, and I went with Dende. I'm sorry, guys. Disagree with me in the comment section. I apologize, but I just can't see Launch beating Dende because she was not formally trained, and neither was Dende, and her evil form is only half of the time. Android 19 versus Chaozu. This isn't even a fight. 17 versus 16. As of Battle of Gods, I would assume 17 didn't really get stronger, so I'm going to have to go with 16. Cell versus Boo. This isn't even a question. Gohan versus Frieza. This isn't even a question as of Battle of Gods, not counting Fukatsu no F. Krillin versus Tien Shenhan. This is where Blackenfist and I will obviously disagree, Blackenfist, because we did a whole debate on it. If you want to know, I'll post it in the description. I say Tien Shenhan is stronger than Krillin. Blackenfist said that Krillin is stronger than Tien Shenhan. We both disagree. We respect each other's opinions, but I just think that Tien's stronger, especially as of Battle of Gods. Roshi versus Bulma, not even close. Elder Kai versus Tenkaichi Budokai announcer. I would have to go with Elder Kai. I mean, even though he's a really, really old man, and, you know, for comical release, you know, he was basically blown away by Goku, if I remember, in a filler scene where Goku was being really, he used, like, a really weak attack, if I remember correctly. I would think that because of his knowledge, and, you know, because he's basically an old Supreme Kai, I would say that even at his advanced age, he would be stronger than the Budokai announcer. He'd probably be at least in the Master Roshi range, maybe even much stronger. I mean, I would think. I mean, old Kai would definitely be stronger than the average person, in my honest opinion. Especially after fusing with that bitch. Yes, I said it, guys. That bitch. I'm just kidding, guys. I'll be low on the profanity. Goku versus General Blue. This isn't a question. Vegeta versus General Blue. This isn't a question. Beerus versus Whis. Whis. It was said that if Beerus is a 10 and Goku is a 6, then Whis would be a 15. So Whis is much stronger. Deborah versus Raditz. Deborah. Pilaf versus Raditz. Raditz. Mr. Popo versus Nappa. Nappa. Supreme Kai versus Kami. Supreme Kai. Kabito. I'm not saying Kabito Kai. Kabito versus Kami. Kabito. Captain Ginyu versus King Kai. Captain Ginyu. And if... yeah, I would just say Captain Ginyu. It's not even close. Babidi versus King Kai. This is an interesting one. I'm going to have to go with King Kai because of the fact that, I mean, there were some sources that said King Kai was a 3500. If you go by the Daisenshu, Babidi isn't really a fighter. I don't really consider Babidi a fighter. I mean, you gotta consider that Babidi is the type of character who just has really powerful magic, so I'm gonna have to go with King Kai on this. But magic is such a complicated thing, but that's what I think makes this interesting. Videl versus Baba. In terms of fighting, I'm going to give the edge to Videl, but in terms of magic, we don't know how strong Fortune Teller Baba is, but I would have to give the edge to Videl, because this is who I think would win in a fight. The only reason I gave Dende that edge over Videl, I'm sorry, Dende over Launch, is because of the Energy Blast. Guys, I know GT is not canon by what a lot of you would consider a part of the whole series. I understand that, but Energy Blast, that's something that really, really separates somebody. Videl versus Baba, so I'm giving it to Videl. Yajirobe versus Baba. In terms of a fight, I would think Yajirobe would win. This is just based off of who I think would win a fight. King Piccolo versus Goten. Goten's way stronger. Dende versus Mr. Satan. Mr. Satan, because of Goku's statement that he would rather fuse with Satan over Dende. And Mr. Satan is well above the average human. I just don't think that Launch would be close enough to Mr. Satan to be compared with Dende. So Dende would probably be in between those two, because, I mean, it's just complicated, you know? And by the way, this is all opinion. By the way, at the end of this, guys, I'll just say this really quickly. I want to see what you guys do. Copy and paste your list at the end, and I'd love to see this. This is a great thing, and I'll be very active in the comments. 19 versus Chi-Chi, not a chance. Chaozu versus Chi-Chi, not a chance. 16 versus Jiro, 16. 17 versus Jiro, 17 killed him. Boo versus 18, Boo. Cell versus 18, Cell. Gohan versus Trunks, Gohan. Frieza versus Trunks, Trunks. Because of, by that point, as a Super Saiyan after going in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, I'm assuming they're talking about Kid Trunks. And even if it was Future Trunks, it would still be Future Trunks. Piccolo versus Tien, come on, Piccolo's way stronger. Roshi versus Yamcha, Yamcha's stronger. Yes, guys, Yamcha's stronger. Don't make fun of him that much. Yamcha's way stronger than the average human still. Elder Kai versus Goku, Goku hands down. Vegeta versus Elder Kai, Vegeta hands down. General Blue versus Elder Kai. I'm gonna shock you guys, and I'm gonna say Elder Kai, because I would think that he's way stronger than martial arts humans. Yes, that whole thing that he did with Goku was, you know, for comic effect, but I would still think that because of his abilities, even at his extremely advanced stage, I would still think that because of being a Kai and having all those reserves of power, I would have to give Elder Kai. I mean, that's just my honest opinion. General Blue versus Tenkaichi announcer, General Blue. Dabura versus Whis Whis. Dabura versus Beerus, Beerus. Dabura versus Mercenary Tao, Dabura. Raditz versus Mercenary Tao, Raditz. Pilaf versus Mercenary Tao, Mercenary Tao. Supreme Kai versus Nappa. Supreme Kai hands down. I almost said Nappa. Kibito versus Nappa. Remember what I said about Kibito Kai? I'm gonna have to go with Kibito. I mean, I would think. I mean, we don't really know what Kibito's strength is, but considering he hangs around the Supreme Kai, I would think they're not that far apart. Kami versus Nappa. Nappa. Mr. Popo versus Kami. I'm gonna have to go with Mr. Popo. I know some of you might disagree, but I mean, considering the fact that Mr. Popo would be at a 10:30 and I wouldn't think he trains, and King Piccolo would obviously be way weaker than what Goku was to start off at Dragon Ball Z, I would have to go with Mr. Popo. Kami versus Korin, well, I would have to go with probably Kami on this situation, considering he fought in that tournament and he seemed really, really strong. Not to mention, I mean, both of them kind of trained Goku, but I would have to go with Kami over Korin. But I mean, I'm sure it's, I mean, I don't know. I would have to say Kami, especially considering the fact that he's part of Piccolo. I mean, obviously Piccolo's way stronger, but I mean, the reserves that he has would be way stronger than what I think Korin would have. Videl versus Ginyu, this isn't even a fight. Videl versus King Kai, this isn't even a fight. Videl versus Babidi, I think Videl would beat Babidi in a fight. Not considering magic, because magic is so hard to judge. But in terms of a fight, I think Videl would win. That's why I gave, once again going back, I gave Dende the edge over Launch because of energy control. Yajirobe versus Babidi. I would give Yajirobe the edge because of a fight. Fortune Teller Babidi. Fortune Teller Baba versus Babidi. This is a very interesting one. I would give the edge to Babidi only because I think his magic would be stronger. But they're both not fighters. I based this off of the magic fight itself. So that's kind of how I organized it. Mr. Satan versus Goten, not even a chance. King Piccolo versus Mr. Satan, not a chance. Mr. Satan versus Oolong, I would give Mr. Satan the edge. Even though Oolong can shapeshift, I do think that Oolong is not really formally trained, and Mr. Satan is formally trained for a regular human, so I give Mr. Satan the edge. Dende versus Oolong, well, if I think that Dende can beat Launch, I would think that Launch could probably beat Oolong, so I would give Dende the edge over Oolong. Launch versus Oolong, what a coincidence, I just said that, Launch. 16 versus 19, 16. 17 versus 19, 17. Gero versus 19, only because he said he's an improved model, and maybe he was bluffing, but I would think he was an improved model over 19, especially since they're both energy-absorbing models, and he would obviously be an advanced version. I would say Dr. Gero. Gohan versus Boo, Gohan. But this is a very ambiguous question. As of Battle of Gods, I'm assuming they're talking about Fat Boo, because that's the only Boo that was around. So I'm going as regards to Gohan over Majin Buu. Trunks versus Majin Buu. Individually, Trunks, I would have to go Majin Buu. Cell versus Trunks. I do think that Trunks and Goten got much stronger after the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, but I don't think that at Battle of Gods they would have been stronger than Cell. Because that would mean that they were around Super Saiyan 2. They would be Super Saiyan 2 power individually, and I don't think they're that strong. If they fuse, that's a different story, but I would say Cell would still be individually stronger. 18 versus Trunks. This is very complicated. I do think that by Battle of Gods, Goten and Trunks were probably stronger than the androids, but weaker than Cell. So I think that because of that, I would have to give Trunks the edge, especially because when he trained with Goten in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, since we finally found the level above a Super Saiyan. Whatever that means is ambiguous, and, you know, that whole Goku and his friends return was something else. And I remember Vegito 1089 was saying that they said that Goten and Trunks were strong as Frieza in their base forms. I don't remember if that's the exact quote, but I would have to say Trunks and Goten would be stronger than all of the androids if they could turn Super Saiyan individually. If you take into account that fight they had with 18 at the tournament, the fact that they held their own, and that was prior to them going in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, I would have to give Trunks the edge. Frieza versus 18, 18 hands down. Piccolo versus Yamcha, Piccolo hands down. Tien versus Yamcha. Krillin versus Yamcha, yes, Yamcha's weaker than all of them. Whis versus Goku, Whis. Beerus versus Goku, Beerus. Dabura versus Goku, Goku. Vegeta versus Dabura, Vegeta. Elder Kai versus Dabura, Dabura. Raditz versus Elder Kai. Now we're getting a little fishy here. I do think that I kind of look at Elder Kai kind of like a Master Roshi type of fighter. I think he'd be like maybe stronger than like the Z fighters as of probably up to, you know, Dragon Ball, but like once you get to Z with characters like Raditz, I would think that Elder Kai would be weaker than Raditz, because Raditz is really, really powerful. And I don't think that the Elder Kai would have been that strong. I could be wrong, but I do think the Elder Kai could beat the average human, which would put him above all Dragon Ball characters. So I'm going to go with Raditz over Elder Kai. Mercenary Tao versus Elder Kai. I'm going to have to go with Elder Kai, but this is a tough one. Mercenary Tao is really strong, but because of his experience, wisdom, and reserved power, even if he's old, I'm going to have to go with Elder Kai. I know you guys might think I'm overshooting Elder Kai, but you got to think that he is a former Supreme Kai and a god. Yeah, now we do know that the Kais were overrated in power, but come on. Even if he's ridiculously old, I do think he would be stronger than a lot of characters, even if we never really saw him fight, just because he's a Kai. And fusing with that witch would probably give him some powers that we never saw, and who knows the extent, so I'd give Elder Kai the advantage. Mercenary Tao versus General Blue. Well, Mercenary Tao killed him, so I'm going to have to go with him. Pilaf versus General Blue. I have to go with General Blue here. Pilaf versus Budokai Tenkaichi Announcer. I mean, man, this is weird. I don't think Pilaf is that strong. I mean, we don't really see him. If he uses his machine, maybe I give him an edge, but oh, man, I don't know. I mean, the Budokai Tenkaichi father is not a fighter at all. So I'm going to have to give... I don't know, man. I mean, If you count machines, then maybe Pilaf would have even been ahead of General Blue, but then General Blue has the entire Red Ribbon Army, but... So this gets complicated, guys. I'm just gonna say because of gadgets, I'm gonna give the edge to Pilaf. I know this is weird, but the Tenkaichi Budokai announcer is nothing. He's just a regular dude that announces fights. And, you know, although Pilaf is weak, I mean, oh man, I mean, because of machinery, I'd give Pilaf the edge. And because he, you know, I'll give Pilaf the edge because of tactics, because he has to be smart and using gadgets and, you know, evading fights. So I'm giving Pilaf the edge only because of that. Captain Ginyu versus Supreme Kai. Supreme Kai. Captain Ginyu versus Kibito. I'd have to say Kibito and Supreme Kai are way stronger than all those Namek characters. And by the way, guys, I'm considering Captain Ginyu on Namek. I'm not considering him as the frog, and I'm not considering him in Goku's body. I'm considering what I remember as Captain Ginyu, the purple dude with the horns. Ginyu versus Nappa. Ginyu, way stronger. King Kai versus Nappa. Nappa. Because of the Daishenzu, I have to go with some type of scale. King Kai versus Popo. King Kai. Videl versus Mr. Popo. Damn, this is tough. Videl fought against Popovich, which was really impressive, but I don't think Popovich would probably beat a lot of Dragon Ball characters. I'm going to have to go with Mr. Popo, because that's saying that Videl is close to Raditz's power. Videl versus Kami, Kami hands down. Videl versus Korin, man, I'm going to have to give it to Korin. I mean, we never saw him fight that much, but you got to think that Korin has to be way stronger than the average human, and I don't think Videl was stronger than Kid Goku. So I'm going to have to go with Korin. I mean, you would think that Kami and Korin were at least, you know, maybe stronger than Goku at the beginning of Dragon Ball. So I would have to say Korin. I don't think Videl could beat Kid Goku. So yeah, Korin. 16 versus Goten. Goten. I think Goten and Trunks are stronger than all the androids by that point. 16 versus King Piccolo, it's not even close. 17 versus King Piccolo, not even close. Jiro versus King Piccolo, not even close. 19 versus King Piccolo, not even close. Chaozu versus King Piccolo, not even close. I mean, even though Chaozu's weak, he's stronger than King Piccolo by this point. Chi-Chi versus King Piccolo. King Piccolo, I know a lot of you might say, well, she trained with Goten. Don't see her being stronger than King Piccolo. Mr. Satan versus Chi-Chi, this is a very interesting one. I mean, if you're talking about Battle of Gods, they're both old, and I'm not being sexist or anything. I do think Chi-Chi's a very, very strong fighter. She was trained by the Ox King. She trained with Goten. I don't know how much stronger that makes her. And I've always said if Chi-Chi could fly, I think she could probably beat Videl. Because Chi-Chi is a very, very well-trained fighter. You gotta think she trained with the Ox King, who I think would probably beat Hercule. So, guys, I'm gonna say, and if you count Chi-Chi when she gets her temper tantrums, I mean, if you count filler, she outran that, and I have to count filler in GT, guys. Well, not GT, because this is at Battle of Gods. Man, I don't know. Chi-Chi is really strong. Oh, man. I mean, she fought Goku at that World Tournament, and obviously Goku was holding back, but... but then again, Hercule did win a tournament on his own, too, and against Spopovich. Man. Man, I'm gonna really have to go with Mr. Satan. I thought about it, but I really think that Mr. Satan could probably beat Chi-Chi in a fight. But I think it'd be really close, but I do think that because Hercule was winning those tournaments on his own, that's pretty respectable. And Chi-Chi did hold her own with Goku, but Goku was holding back so much. Man. Yeah, guys, I'm going to have to give Satan the edge there. But I think that Chi-Chi would probably be stronger than Dende, because I think the scale between her and Hercule were around the same. Not to mention, I mean, I don't think Chi-Chi probably... Hercule still probably works out to some degree, you know? And I don't think Chi-Chi probably got any bit stronger, whereas Chi-Chi, Videl, and, Hercule maybe got a little bit stronger, because I'm sure Hercule works out to some degree. So I'd still give them a slight edge over Chi-Chi, guys. And part of me really wants to put Chi-Chi ahead of Hercule, but because she trained with the Ox King. But man, winning those tournaments by yourself against all those great fighters is pretty respectable. You know what, guys? I've changed my decision. I'm gonna go with Chi-Chi, and I'm gonna pause this so that I can redo this list all the way up to this point. I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I'm back. I really contemplated and thought about all of this, and I really said to myself, guys, because of the Ox King's training, because of training with Goten, because of the fact that she was in that tournament, and although Goku was holding back, Chi-Chi managed to really fight in a time of serious competition. And although Goku was holding back, I mean, you gotta think, Goku was blocking, and you gotta think, this is against Goku now, and Goku is way stronger than Hercule. I know Chi-Chi's power would decline a little bit with age, but guys, I just really honestly think that Chi-Chi is underrated, and because she trained with Ox King, who trained with Master Roshi, I'm gonna say that Chi-Chi gets the edge over Mr. Satan. As weird as it might sound, I think that Chi-Chi is actually stronger than Mr. Satan. I know a lot of you are going to disagree. This is the most controversial thing. And you know what, guys? That's what I love about this, because I don't want you guys to agree with me. That's what would be boring. I love to see you guys disagree and, you know, back up your points in the comment section below. But as far as I'm going to put Chi-Chi a slight edge over Mr. Satan. Piccolo versus Gohan. Gohan is stronger than Piccolo. I'm trying to be completely unbiased here. Majin Buu versus Piccolo. Majin Buu. Cell versus Piccolo. Oh my goodness. This dates back to my whole video on how strong was Piccolo at the end of the series. And, you know, I gotta really factor all of this in. I said for sure that I think that by the end... By the Buu Saga, I said that I felt that Piccolo was close to Perfect Cell's power by the end of the Buu Saga, after that 7-year gap. Not Super Perfect Cell, but Perfect Cell, considering the fact that when he went into the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, and I forgot to say this in my video, when Piccolo went into the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, guys, you guys probably don't know this, but he was actually stronger than Vegeta and Trunks when they went in. Not saying when they came out, but when they both went in, Piccolo was fused with Kami, who was ahead of Super Saiyan Vegeta and Super Saiyan Trunks and Super Saiyan Goku and Gohan. So Piccolo was actually the strongest person to go into the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. Now, obviously, he's not a Saiyan. He's not going to get as much out of it, and he trained by himself, technically, if you count his multiform. But I think that if you factor in that all these years are taking place, I mean, I did say that I think by the end of Z, he's probably close to Super Perfect Cell, and by GT, he's definitely stronger. I'm going to go out on a whim, guys, and I'm going to say... This is tough. But this is with the assumption that he trains, that I assume he does. I'm gonna say, guys, and you guys are gonna probably find it surprising. But... I think Cell's stronger by this point. I know you guys might think that I would think Piccolo was stronger, but remember what I said. I said by Battle of Gods, I think it's unclear, but I don't think he would have been maybe stronger than Super Perfect Cell by that point. I said by the end of Z, when they were around that tournament, he probably was there, so maybe he was getting closer, but I don't think by that point Piccolo was stronger than Cell. I still think Cell was slightly stronger than Piccolo. Now, Piccolo versus Trunks. Gotta go with Piccolo here. Tien versus Trunks. Trunks is stronger than Tien. 18 versus Tien. 18's much stronger. Frieza versus Tien. I would still think that even after all these years, Frieza would be stronger. Supreme Kai versus Whis. Whis definitely. I think Whis is probably the strongest person on this list, to be honest with you. Beerus, unless I'm forgetting somebody, but I would think it would be Whis. Beerus versus Supreme Kai, Beerus. Goku versus Supreme Kai, Goku. Vegeta versus Supreme Kai, Vegeta. Deborah versus Supreme Kai, Deborah. Raditz versus Supreme Kai, Supreme Kai. Kibito versus Raditz. Kibito. Captain Ginyu versus Raditz. Captain Ginyu, hands down. Nappa versus Raditz, not even a question. King Kai versus Raditz. King Kai. Mr. Popo versus Raditz. Raditz. Elder Kai versus Mr. Popo. Wow, I knew I would have to bump into this at some point. I'm gonna have to go... Man, this is complicated because... I said that I think that Elder Kai is weaker than Raditz, but I look at Elder Kai like kind of like a Kami Korin type of guy who's still strong, but due to like ridiculous age, like he's declined. And remember, he's millions of years old. I'm gonna have to go with Mr. Popo over Elder Kai, only because Mr. Popo is close to Raditz. Kami versus Elder Kai, man, this is tough. Man, this is really tough. I think that I'm gonna have to give a slight edge to Kami. But man, this is tough. I would think that Elder Kai would probably be stronger than all Dragon Ball characters. But I mean, you gotta think Kami was a legit fighter. And I mean, he does have a lot of abilities. I'm gonna give a slight edge to Kami. And I'm really winking on this one, but I just can't see Elder Kai beating Kami in a fight. I think he's probably like close to Roshi Korin-ish, and ironically I got Korin next. Because of Korin, I don't know, man. This is so weird. I think that I could put Elder Kai slightly above Roshi. I know it's a weird thing, but I think because of what Goku said, I know a guy who likes dirty magazines. I might, but then again, I put him over Mercenary Tao. And I do think that maybe Mercenary Tao would probably be weaker than Korin and Kami. So I'm gonna go with, yeah, I definitely think that Korin and Kami would probably be stronger than Mercenary Tao because of the tournament in which Kami participated. I'm gonna have to go with a very slight edge to Korin, because I think the difference between Korin's power and Kami's is very minuscule. So I'm gonna say Korin's slight edge, and this is so weird. I'm giving a cat an edge over a Kai. You know what? I'm gonna go Elder Kai over Korin. So I put Elder Kai probably between Kami and Korin in terms of power. That's just my honest opinion, because, I mean, man, this is a Kai we're talking about, and Kami is a non-regular being, just like Mr. Popo. And I'm not trying to be racist on the behalf of being a Kai, but come on, I just can't see Elder Kai and all of his abilities losing to Korin. So I'm gonna go with Elder Kai. Mercenary Tao versus Korin, slight edge to Korin because of the point of the series in which they were introduced. So I'm gonna give a slight edge to Korin. Videl versus Mercenary Tao, very good one, but I think Videl would win. And these are, you know, I mean, I would think Korin could probably beat Videl in a fight, not counting flying. So yeah, I mean, you got to think about how the type of beings that we're discussing here. Mercenary Tao is just a really strong bandit. Yajirobe versus Mercenary Tao. Whew. I mean, I don't really think Yajirobe trains. To be honest with you guys, I mean, how strong is Yajirobe? Does he really train? I mean, he was fighting with them on that tower. This is the weird one, guys. This is what makes this so fun. Okay, Yajirobe versus Mercenary Tao. Man. I mean, Yajirobe was strong enough to hurt a very injured Vegeta with his sword. Even though Vegeta's power was severely weakened. Severely weakened. Yajirobe was able to damage him. Man, I'm gonna give a very slight edge to Yajirobe. And this is only because of that little thing that they had, like where Yajirobe was sparring with them a little bit on Kami's tower. If I remember correctly, I don't know if he was just being lazy, but I think Yajirobe was actually sparring with them to a minor degree. So I'm just gonna give a minor edge to Yajirobe. Very minor, but it's just my honest opinion, guys. Babidi versus Mercenary Tao. General Blue versus Babidi. I think General Blue would beat Babidi in a fight, but Babidi's magic would give him an advantage. But if we're talking about a fight, hand-to-hand, I would have to give the edge to General Blue. That's what I'm basing this on. Babidi versus Pilaf. Well, then, see, here's the thing, guys. When it comes to fighting, I will always give the fighter the edge over Babidi. But when it pertains to a person who's not a fighter, that's when magic comes into account. But then again, Babidi could make that little barrier thing to defend himself that Piccolo had to break through. But I mean, but what good is doing that in terms of fighting? I mean, Babidi's not a fighter. I kind of regret giving No. General Blue is way stronger than the average person, and I do think that General Blue would probably beat Babidi in a fight, because Babidi's not a fighter. And that's why I give him the edge over Babidi. Babidi versus Pilaf. Babidi only because of magic. Baba versus Pilaf. My goodness, this is complicated. Baba, man, only because of magic. I give magic. I will only give magic of magic users an advantage over people who are not fighters at all. So that's why I give them the edge, guys. I don't know if you like my system, and please criticize me, but that's just my honest opinion. Gohan versus Goten. Gohan. Boo versus Goten. Boo. Cell versus Goten. Well, Goten and Trunks are like basically equal, so Cell. Piccolo versus Goten. Piccolo. Trunks versus Goten. Very small edge to Trunks. 18 versus Goten. Goten. 16 versus 18. 16. 17 versus 18. Very small edge to 17 based off of the manga where he said where they said in the manga pile that 17 was slightly stronger than 18. And I look at them like Goten and Trunks. 17. 18 versus Jiro. Oh, 18 definitely. Frieza versus Jiro. This is complicated. I'm gonna have to go with Jiro, guys. I know a lot of you might disagree, but I do think that 19 and 20 were stronger than Frieza. And the reason I say this is because I do think by that point Piccolo was probably stronger than Frieza was on Namek. Not to mention, you gotta consider the fact that Vegeta was a much stronger Super Saiyan than what Goku was on Namek. And I mean, obviously 19 was losing, but I mean, you gotta think about how strong they got in those 3 years, and the fact that even though Goku was weakened, you know, 19 did some damage on a weakened Goku. Not to mention 19, you know, I mean, Vegeta was beating 19 hands down, but I mean, 19 did inflict a little bit of damage on him, even though Vegeta was toying on him. And so I gotta give the slight edge to Jiro only because I think Jiro's a little bit stronger than 19. I know you guys are gonna disagree, but it's my opinion, and I said my reasons behind it. 19 over Frieza. Frieza versus Chaozu. Oh, whoa, that's not even close. Frieza. Tien versus Chaozu. Tien. Krillin versus Chaozu. Krillin. Yamcha versus Chaozu. This is weird. Very, very weird. I mean, Chaozu's always training with Tien. But Yamcha was still considerably stronger than Chaozu from that point on in the series. So, I mean, even if Yamcha declines, I mean, oh, man, this is complicated because it's like two elevators. Yamcha's power level is decreasing. Chaozu's is slightly increasing by training with Tien. At least we assume he's training with Tien or just hanging out. Man, I'm going to have to go with a very, 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 very slight edge to Yamcha. Because I gotta think that Yamcha probably, because of that 3-year gap training for the Saiyans, I think that Yamcha would have permanently closed the gap between him and Chaozu. I don't think Chaozu would have ever caught up to Yamcha by that point. Because of that 3-year gap, and even though Chaozu was training with Tien a little bit too, I mean, it seemed like Yamcha was pushing himself more, and, you know, Tien himself said, I don't think the little guy can handle it here. So I would assume that Yamcha would have been stronger than Chaozu. That's just my opinion. Disagree with me. That's my point. Chaozu's stronger than Roshi, though. King Piccolo's stronger than Roshi. Chi-Chi versus Roshi. Roshi. Bulma versus Chi-Chi. The fight of the bitches. I gotta give the edge to Chi-Chi. It's not even a fight. Satan versus Bulma. I say Mr. Satan. Dende versus Bulma. Dende. Launch versus Bulma. If you count evil Launch, yeah. And I have to count Launch at her strongest. Bulma versus Oolong. I mean, I'm gonna have to give the edge to... I mean, Bulma's not a fighter. She gets mad, but she's not a fighter, and Oolong could shapeshift a little bit. I mean, come on. I mean, if Oolong turns into something that could... I don't know, but he's weak. This is weird, but I say just a slight shape-shifting edge to Oolong. Just a slight. Whis versus Gohan. I mean, Whis. I said Whis. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I just think that Dende, one quick thing I wanted to point out, even though it was more in the filler, Dende was flying and carrying Mr. Satan. And although I do think that Mr. Satan would have been a stronger fighter than Dende, I mean, to carry Hercule like that, I would think he'd probably be stronger than Launch. That's just a little bit more support. Guys, I know this video is long, but think of this as more of one of the podcasts. I know a lot of you like these, apparently, so let's continue here. Alright, so Gohan versus Beerus. Gohan versus Goku by Battle of Gods. Vegeta versus Gohan. Me and Blackenfist made a whole video on this. Was when did Vegeta surpass Gohan? And we both agreed that even, like, by that point, I mean, Mystic Gohan was so much stronger than Vegeta. Yeah, he had that one little moment where they said, oh, Vegeta's powers surpassed Goku for a few seconds. And he did hold his own against Beerus way better than Gohan did. But, I mean, I think that was just, like, a feat of the rage moment. I can't see, especially without training with Whis. I mean, if you count Fukatsu no F, I would say Vegeta's stronger than Gohan. But you gotta say by that point in the series, although it's 4 years, you gotta factor in, maybe by Fukatsu no F, yeah, but by Battle of Gods? Gohan, I mean, Vegeta can't even turn Super Saiyan 3. And Gohan, although his power would have declined, he was so much stronger than both Goku and Gohan. I would still think that Gohan is the second strongest Z fighter. So I'm going to have to go with Gohan as of Battle of Gods, guys. And yes, that little Vegeta moment against Beerus might turn you guys off, but that's just my honest opinion. Buu versus Vegeta. This is complicated. I think, okay, this is weird. I think that Vegeta would have been stronger than Fat Buu by this point. Because I think in 4 years he can catch up to Fat Buu. But I don't think he could catch up to Gohan. That's another stratosphere of power. So that means I think Vegeta could probably hold his own better with Kid Buu, but I still don't think he'd be able to beat Kid Buu. No. I don't know what I'm saying here, guys, because you gotta factor in that Fat Buu was holding his own really well against Kid Buu. I mean, not that well. Kid Buu was toying around, but I mean, Vegeta was demolished. I think it was his second worst beatdown next to Frieza. Now, yes, Vegeta's 4 years stronger, but you gotta say, without Super Saiyan 3, man, does this get itchy. I think the Super Saiyan 3 is really the problem. I think he would need that to beat. If Vegeta could turn Super Saiyan 3, I think I would give him the edge over Kid Buu, but man, 4 years? I don't think Vegeta would have been stronger than Kid Buu by this point. And Fat Buu's not that far from Kid Buu. Actually, no, Fat Buu is actually a good amount weaker. But he just could hold his own because he could regenerate. So I'm actually going to go with 4 years. I think 4 years Vegeta could pass Fat Buu. That's just my opinion. I know you guys might think I stretched it a bit much, but you got to think Majin Buu is still really strong. Majin Buu would beat Dabura, though. Cell would get a slight boost over Dabura. I think that Super Perfect Cell is definitely stronger, so I'm assuming that's the Cell we're talking about. Piccolo versus Dabura, very good one. I said that I think Cell would have been stronger than Piccolo. So, I think by this point, Piccolo was probably... I think that Dabura is not as strong as Super Perfect Cell. And I think by this point, Piccolo's getting closer to Super Perfect Cell. And I do think that Piccolo's stronger than Perfect Cell by this point. And you guys have convinced me in my how strong is Piccolo at the end of the series that Piccolo was probably even stronger than Supreme Kai. Just out of respect for his power, he didn't want to fight him because of his god. And I didn't think about that. And that's what I love making videos for. So I'm going to have to actually say... I say that Piccolo is stronger than Dabura, weaker than Super Perfect Cell by this point. Because Gohan wasn't even a Super Saiyan 2 when he was fighting Dabura, and Vegito 1089 had suggested it because Goku was saying to him, you need to tap into that power that you were when you were a child. But then again, Goku said, you know, years ago I fought this guy, Cell, and him and Dabura aren't that far off. And was Goku referring to Super Perfect or Perfect? Well, did Goku really get a chance to gauge Cell's power from the afterlife? We don't know. I would assume he would be able to gauge it because of the Gohan Kamehameha Clash. Man. I think because of 4 years, though, I think that Piccolo would probably be stronger than Deborah, but not Super Perfect Cell yet. Not yet. Because Super Perfect Cell, I think, is on another level from Deborah. Trunks versus Deborah. Deborah. Supreme Kai versus Trunks. You know what, guys? I think I'm gonna go with Trunks. I mean, you gotta think that Supreme Kai did hold Gohan back, but I don't think the Supreme Kai is that strong. Considering how impressed he was with Gohan's power, who is probably weaker than Super Perfect Cell as an adult Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. And I do think that Trunks would probably be stronger than... No. I gotta go with Supreme Kai. I just feel something about Supreme Kai over Trunks. I don't know what it is, but I feel like Supreme Kai could beat Trunks and Goten, even after the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. But I just can't, because I think Goten and Trunks are probably stronger than the androids, but not Cell. And I think Supreme Kai would probably be somewhat close to, like, maybe semi-perfect Cell to perfect Cell. So I would give, you know, him an edge. And I think that Kibito is probably around his power. So I give Kibito and Supreme Kai edges over Goten and Trunks. It's weird, though. It's really weird, but I just think they have to be stronger. I don't know why. It's weird. But Trunks versus Captain Ginyu. Trunks. Goten versus Captain Ginyu. Oh, definitely Goten is stronger than Captain Ginyu. 16 versus Ginyu. 16. 17 versus Ginyu. 17. Yeah, 18 versus Ginyu, 18. Jiro versus Ginyu, Jiro. 19 versus Ginyu, 19. It's a lot of Ginyu questions. Frieza versus Ginyu, come on. Tien versus Ginyu by the end of this, by Battle of Gods, Tien. Krillin versus Ginyu, Krillin. Yamcha versus Ginyu, I'd even go as far as to say Yamcha's stronger. Chaozu versus Ginyu, I'd go as far as to say Chaozu's stronger by that point. I mean, come on. King Piccolo versus Ginyu, Ginyu. Nappa versus King Piccolo, Nappa. King Kai versus King Piccolo, King Kai. Raditz versus King Piccolo, Raditz. Mr. Popo versus King Piccolo, Mr. Popo. Kami versus King Piccolo. I don't really think Kami would have trained, so I would say that maybe King Piccolo is probably stronger than Kami, but Kami is weaker than King Piccolo and Popo. So I would, but then I would probably put, you know, Elder Kai around, even though it's just a guess. I really have nothing to back it up. I'm gonna have to go with King Piccolo. Roshi versus Kami, Kami. Elder Kai versus Roshi, slight edge Elder Kai. Korin versus Roshi, slight edge Korin. Roshi versus Videl. No, I can't give Videl that much over Roshi. I mean, Roshi's stronger than Videl. I can't see Roshi losing to Videl. Yeah, I gotta give Roshi the edge. Chi-Chi versus Videl. I think if you really think about it, I think Chi-Chi would have been very minusculely stronger than Hercule by Battle of Gods, because it's not that far removed from her training with Goten. But I give Videl an edge over both Chi-Chi and Hercule. Chi-Chi versus Yajirobe. Yajirobe? Yeah, I'd go with Yajirobe over Chi-Chi. I think I'm comfortable saying that. Mercenary Tao versus Chi-Chi. Well, I gotta first think to myself, do I think Hercule could beat Mercenary Tao in a fight? The answer is no. Damn it. I mean, this is Mercenary Tao we're talking about here. And even if Chi-Chi trained with Ox King, I don't think she could beat Mercenary Tao. Because Mercenary Tao is stronger than Kid Goku. And I do think that, as weird as it may sound, guys, I do think that all of these characters we're talking about are weaker than Kid Goku. So I really use Kid Goku as the scale for this. is Kid Goku stronger than all of these characters that I'm mentioning? So I think that because of that, I think Kid Goku's obviously stronger than Mercenary Tao. And I think he would be stronger than Chi-Chi. But how do I think Chi-Chi would compare to Kid Goku? Well, surviving bullets is one thing. Mercenary Tao, I'm sorry, Chi-Chi. I'm gonna have to give Mercenary Tao the edge here. Yeah, I think Mercenary Tao could probably beat Hercule and Chi-Chi in a fight. Sorry. Maybe not Videl, but I definitely think Chi-Chi and Hercule. So, I guess the gap, I think, between Hercule and Videl is higher than I thought. I'm giving Videl a lot of credit on this. Wow. I'm surprised. Alright, so I'm going with Mercenary Tao. General Blue versus Chi-Chi. Damn. I mean, Mercenary Tao wiped him out so fast. I mean, because of how easy. I mean, I'm gonna have to go with General Blue, maybe a slight edge. Oh, no. No, you know what I think? Oh, man, General Blue's a general who's, like, well-trained in martial arts season. I think that maybe General Blue could probably beat Chi-Chi and Hercule, but not Videl. Man, I'm creating like a whole gap here. I mean, because kind of think about it, he is pretty strong. And Mercenary Tao wiped him out, so, I mean, I'm gonna... General Blue's so weird. But based on the Kid Goku skill, I gotta give General Blue the edge. Babidi versus Chi-Chi, Chi-Chi. Satan versus Babidi, Satan. Dende versus Babidi. Whoa, this is weird. It's like magic versus... fighting, but I do think that because of very, very basic skills like shooting energy blast. I mean, you don't learn how to shoot an energy blast by GT, and I hate using GT, but I gotta go with Dende. I mean, I think Dende could beat Launch, and I think Launch could beat Babidi, considering he couldn't even beat up a waitress from that little filler episode, if I remember correctly. I only give Babidi an edge over magic users, and Dende technically is a magic user, but I mean, you know what though? I mean, I put Dende over Launch, and I think Launch could probably beat Babidi, so I gotta say Dende. Yeah, I think Launch could beat Babidi in a fight, so I'm gonna give her the advantage. This is weird, man. This is a really weird list. Babidi versus Oolong, man, this is weird. It keeps getting weirder, guys. Oolong versus Babidi. Oolong's not really a fighter. Babidi has magic. Edge goes to Babidi. Baba has magic. Oolong is not a fighter. Edge goes to Baba. That's all I say, guys. I can't debate this anymore. Oolong can shapeshift, but Pilaf can't. Small Edge. Oh, man. But if you count Pilaf with his weapons. But Oolong's not a fighter. Pilaf. Am I going to put Pilaf ahead of Oolong? I mean, you got to think. Oolong can shapeshift. That's a huge edge. Even though they're both not really fighters, I mean, because of, like, the gadgets. I mean, if I gotta use shapeshifting, I gotta give Pilaf, like, his machines. So I'll give Pilaf the machine advantage over really, really, really weak fighters. Oh, man. No, guys, I'm sorry. Oolong's not a fighter. He really isn't. And Pilaf isn't either, but because of his machines, I gotta give Pilaf the edge over Oolong. I just can't see Pilaf losing to Oolong. This is getting weird, because, like, I think Pilaf, General Blue, would beat him in a fight, but Oolong's not a fighter at all. Man, this is tough. Fuck, guys. I'm sorry. Shapeshifting. Oh, man. I only gave General Pilaf an edge over, the Tenkaichi fighter because I don't consider him anything. He's an old man that announces fights. Damn it. I hate these decisions, but I want to give you guys the best answer. Fuck. I'm gonna go with Pilaf. Only reason I say this is, can you see Oolong conquering Pilaf? No. Oolong versus the Tenkaichi fighter, Oolong. Bulma versus the Tenkaichi fighter. When she gets pissed, I'll say Bulma because of technology. I know it's weird, but her suits, you know, that might be able to do it, guys. So guys, let's first go through both, basically like the first half of my final list and my second list to actually basically discuss how I think, you know, my list came out, because after taking a little glance, I actually agree with most of these things. So I agree, Whis is the strongest character as of Battle of Gods. Beerus I would put second. Goku I would put third. I agree with that. Gohan, I still think that by this point he would be stronger than Vegeta, because I can't see without a Super Saiyan 3 or without other some type of major transformation, I don't think Vegeta could have been stronger than Gohan, because Gohan was astronomically stronger than Vegeta by that point. And you gotta consider, I mean, that Mystic Gohan was so far ahead of Vegeta that I think that only by Fukatsu no F he surpassed him. If you want to check out our When Did Vegeta Surpass Gohan, do so. It's one of our Thought for Talks. Majin Buu over Cell, I think we could all agree with that. And Vegeta over Majin Buu by this point, 4 years, if I'm counting Fat Buu. I think because, you know, Majin Vegeta probably was weaker than Fat Buu, and Goku said, hey, Vegeta, you know, he's stronger than us, but if we work together, we might stand a chance. And that was like, you know, prior to the actual Battle of God. So I think that because of that, I think Vegeta with 4 years could beat Fat Buu. Cell, I say Cell. Oh, and by the way, guys, I'll say. So, guys, now that I actually have my list sorted out, let's actually take a little look here at my final list and its completion. So, after taking a little glance, I agree with most of the things on here, and let me go through it really quickly to share my overall thoughts. So, starting off with Whis, I do agree that Whis is the strongest. I'm sure probably all of you agree. Toriyama said he was a 15, and, you know, Beerus is stronger than Goku, so I would agree that Whis, Beerus, and Goku are the 3 strongest. Followed by Gohan over Vegeta. I know some of you might disagree with the whole My Bulma moment and all of that stuff, and him saying that he surpassed him, but you gotta think that the gap between Mr. Gohan's power and Vegeta was so astronomically high, I can't see how he caught up to that in 4 years. Now, with Whis' training, that's different. But in 4 years of just him training by himself, I can't see it. Even if he trains with Trunks, I cannot see Vegeta being stronger than Gohan. Gohan was way above the Super Saiyan 3 based off of the evidence from the manga. So I don't even think that it's possible for Vegeta to have surpassed Gohan by this point. But I do think he could have surpassed Fat Buu. Now, I know some of you might disagree with some of this, because you might say, well, Qaaman, you know, Super Saiyan 3 Goku wasn't that much stronger than Fat Buu. Yes, but Goku was holding back. We never got to see the full extent of his power, and we saw when he was using more of his power, he could almost beat Kid Buu, who's stronger than Fat Buu. So, I do think that, even though he's not Super Saiyan 3, I think Vegeta could have surpassed Fat Buu by this point. But it wouldn't be a huge difference, in my honest opinion. Cell is weaker than Majin Buu. We probably all agree with that. I think that Piccolo, with 4 years of training, since I kind of put this in his pathway to getting to Super Perfect Cell, I would give him a slight edge over Deborah, but I don't think it's a huge difference. And I also think that when you consider the fact that I think that Super Perfect Cell is way stronger than Deborah, but I think that Deborah's close to Perfect Cell, I do think by this point Piccolo could beat Deborah. Supreme Kai. Now, I would think that Piccolo would have been weaker than Supreme Kai as of the Buu Saga. I do think this is with additional training, and considering the fact that you guys have convinced me that Piccolo was kind of more stunned by Supreme Kai, not just because he was powerful, but because he was a deity of some sort, and because Piccolo is partially a god now after fusing with Kami, it kind of felt weird for him to fight him, and that's what you guys have really convinced me to. But even though I still think it was a good point, I do still think Piccolo was impressed with his power. I do think that, you know, Kibito, Supreme Kai would obviously be weaker than Deborah, and Piccolo would be stronger than both. And I think Kibito and Supreme Kai are neck and neck. Obviously, Kibito Kai is them fused, but that's no fun. You know, it's fun to use Kibito instead of Kibito Kai, because it's not really giving him much. Trunks versus Goten, they're basically the same in power, so there's no real difference there. Android 16 is the strongest android, not counting Cell. 17 would be followed right after, and 18 slightly behind 17. Dr. Droll would be weaker than all of them. And 19, I give a slight edge to Dr. Droll because Dr. Droll said it. In terms of Frieza, I think that Frieza should definitely be next. I don't think that after all that training, Tien could catch up to Frieza, because Frieza, you got to consider that if you're counting mechanical or on Namek, I mean, he held his own with both against Super Saiyan Goku in both the manga and the anime. Now, I understand you guys might think that's kind of weird, but I just can't see Tien being stronger than a Super Saiyan, or even close to a Super Saiyan, or even inflicting damage on a Super Saiyan, even with all those years of training. Even though he'd probably be really respectably strong, can't see him that close to Frieza. Krillin, I think he's weaker than Tien. Blackenfist is gonna definitely disagree, and we both, we agree on most of the things we talk about, but I just think Krillin is weaker than Tien, and we had a whole debate on it. Yamcha, oh, and by the way, if you guys want to know one of my main reasons, I think it was because of the gap after, the Cell Saga, where Tien kept training and Krillin wasn't, and not to mention, Tien was always stronger than Krillin, so whenever Krillin passed him by getting that, boost on Namek, with Tien's training on King Kai's planet, coming back, and training even harder than Krillin probably did, I can't see Krillin ever being stronger than Tien. It's just my opinion. That whole strongest human thing is something else, but it's just my honest opinion, guys. Yamcha, right after Krillin. Chaozu, I agree with that. Captain Ginyu, stronger than Nappa, we agree with that. King Kai over Raditz, because, considering King Yama had no problem dealing with Raditz, and King Yama trained with King Kai, and King Kai would probably be stronger than King Yama, I have to give King Kai the edge. Raditz over Mr. Popo, I can see that. 1200 power level versus 1030. King Piccolo versus Kami, I see that, because, you gotta think, when you go back to Dragon Ball, Kami, when he was disguising himself as that guy in the tournament, I don't remember what his name was, that guy with the glasses, but, come on, this is King Piccolo we're talking about. He's obviously the more fighting version of Kami, and he was clearly stronger than both of them, so I think it's clear-cut that King Piccolo is stronger than Kami. Elder Kai over Korin, I kind of see that. I feel like Elder Kai is kind of one of those weak fighters. His power is probably really low, but I can't see him being too low, being weaker than like a lot of the really, really regular human fighters. But I do put Elder Kai in the class, and I kind of associate these with classes. Like there's a class that ranges between like Piccolo. I'm sorry, no, not Piccolo. From Mr. Popo to Master Roshi. I consider that like a range. Guys who are stronger than basically every human on Earth, but will never be stronger than like the serious DBZ fighters like Raditz. Like these are all like brackets, and I'll go over the bracket really quickly once I'm done. This is a long video, so if you guys are still watching, you probably enjoy it enough. Korin, I think that he would get a slight edge over Roshi, considering him being with Kami. I wouldn't think he was too far off. And we never really saw Korin fight, but I would just think because of his advanced training that he would be higher than Master Roshi. It's just my honest opinion. Master Roshi, I think, is definitely stronger than Videl. So Master Roshi would not counting the other humans. Master Roshi, I think, would obviously be the strongest of that master trainer bracket, and then we go to like all the humans. So we got Videl. I think she's clearly strongest because of how she performed against Spopovich, taking an energy blast, all of that stuff. Yajirobe, I think, would probably be slightly stronger than Mercenary Tao. General Blue, I think he's probably way stronger than the average human. I think that he could probably beat Hercule and Chi-Chi, considering the position that he was in. Even though he was more of a comic relief character in some ways. And Mr. Satan, slightly below Chi-Chi. I know that's probably the biggest one. I know I spent a long time talking about it. Training with Ox King, going to that world tournament. I know she's getting a little bit older. Training with Goten, who's a Super Saiyan. And I am making a power level theory. And one of the theory, and I'll give a little secret to those of you who are sticking on. One of my rules in my power level theory is that if you're training with somebody who's stronger than you, the weaker person gains more out of it. So I do think she got a little bit stronger training with Goten, not much, but I do think it would be enough to put her over Hercule. And if you just think about it, Chi-Chi training with Ox King, who trained with Master Roshi, I just think that gives Chi-Chi a slight edge. It's not a big difference. And I could be wrong, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Dende right after Mr. Satan because of Goku's statement that he thinks that Dende isn't a fighter and he'd rather fuse with Hercule. Launch, this is really the biggest guess on this probably list. Dende, because of his ability to carry Hercule, while flying, and then, the whole thing. I have to include filler and all that. And you consider GT, he could shoot an energy blast, even though that's, a lot of you won't consider it canon. shooting an energy blast isn't something you just learn overnight, so he clearly has clear ability to fly and shoot basic energy. I think Dende gets the edge over Launch. And then we're kind of like in the last bracket where we get to like the no fighter bracket. Even though I guess you can say to some degree Dende, I guess, isn't a fighter. Launch might be considered a minor fighter, but I just don't think she could probably beat Dende. And you know, guys, honestly, if you really think about it, you can really swap these. I mean, honestly, if there's one that I might swap Launch for Dende, but I just think that because of flying and basic energy, I just give Dende a slight edge. But really, guys, I could see Launch being at 40. I really could. Very interchangeable. Bobby's not a fighter, but I give him a slight edge over Baba due to magic. Pilaf isn't a fighter. I give Baba advantage over him due to magic. Pilaf, I mean, machines. He's cunning. I can't see Oolong conquering his empire. Give an edge to Pilaf. Oolong over Bulma only because of shapeshifting. Bulma's second to last because she gets really pissed and she could probably beat that Tenkaichi Budokai guy. And that's basically it, guys. The only one that I'm really iffy about is Launch and Dende. I said it before, but because of basic energy, man, I mean, even if Hercule can't use energy, I still think that he has enough fighting powers to probably beat, you know, Dende. And considering the fact that Launch's character doesn't really seem to really be that much of a fighter, she just seems to be aggressive with guns, and, you know, and considering the fact that we're talking about Launch, you know, she has a good side and a bad side, and if she's in her good side, I don't think she could beat Dende. I would factor all of that in to give Dende a slight edge over Launch. That was my most interchangeable one. Maybe the evil Launch could beat Dende, but it's very minuscule. And that's been my video for today, guys. It's been ridiculously long. I'd like to close this video out by just basically going over my bracket categories. I kind of organized this, and I'll be honest with you guys, I actually took this list multiple times to really think this through. I think that Whis, Beerus, and Goku are like in the God tier. I think that Gohan, Vegeta, and Majin Buu are strongest on the Earth tier. You look at Cell, Piccolo, Dabura, those are like Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 2, you need to be an Ascended Saiyan to be stronger than them tier. I'll also go as far as to say that with Supreme Kai and Kabuto Kai, so they're all in like that Cell power range. Trunks, Goten, 16, 17, 18, Gero, 19, and Frieza are all in the Super Saiyan to Ascended Saiyan bracket, meaning that you got to be, they're all in like the Super Saiyan 1 range. Like, you know, you need to be at least a Super Saiyan 1 to hang with these guys in terms of power. So that's the bracket that I put between Trunks to Frieza. And then we get to the next tier, where we have strongest human tier, which really only includes Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, Krillin, Yamcha, and Chaozu. Those are like the 4 strongest regular humans, even though Chaozu's a Pokemon. And then we get to like Namek, Saiyan Saga tier, where it kind of gets random. Like Captain Ginyu's obviously way stronger than Nappa. You know, Nappa's stronger than King Kai and Raditz. So we kind of get like that Frieza henchman range from 24 to 27. And then we get to the way stronger than almost any human could be on a, not counting, you know, Krillin, Tien, Yamcha, and the rest. We get that tier that's right below Raditz, with Mr. Popo going all the way down to Master Roshi. So all of these guys are basically going to be way stronger than basically anybody on Earth, except for the really powerful fighters and anybody who like surpasses them. So it goes all the way up to Mr. Popo. That's the bracket that I consider them going into. And then we get to the last bracket, which is basically the really strong human fighter bracket, which ranges from Videl all the way down to Mr. Satan. And then from 40 to 47, we have the not a fighter bracket. Dende would probably be the strongest out of the not a fighter bracket. Launch, like I said, might interchangeably be it, but I just don't think she's as strong, and factoring in, you know, her other form, that takes it in. And I think that all of these, you know, are basically just non-fighters. Babidi gets a slight edge only because he's stronger than Baba in terms of magic, but he's not a fighter, and I would put them over the rest. So that's been it for today, guys. I spent a lot of time really thinking all of this through. It's been a really long video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sure a lot of you are probably going to stick around because a lot of you really love these long Qaaman videos, so I hope you enjoy. Please share this video. I'd really love to see a lot of you doing this. I really want to see a lot of people like making their tier list, you know. I don't want you to copy me or, you know, see what I have to say. I want to see what you guys say and your arguments behind each point. I mean, if you're willing to put all the reasonings behind it, I'll look at a lot of them in the comment sections. Just, you know, copy and paste them if you can, or do them on a Word document, and you know, just share your thoughts. So most importantly, over everything else, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys, and thanks for all the love and support, everybody.